Another question that I'm really commonly asked is, how can I make my crankbaits dive deeper? Or how can I make them suspend, or maybe sink, or have a stronger action, or do any one of a million other things that they're not currently doing? In other words, what people are asking me is, how can I design a crankbait specifically for the type of fishing that I do, specifically for the style of tackle that I use and the fish that I target? Well, it's a really tricky question because at the end of the day, usually changing one design aspect of an already successful crankbait design is rarely the answer. And the reason that's the case is that changing one design aspect usually has flow-on effects to other design aspects, because all the various components of a crankbait that works really well are working together to make that crankbait do what it does. So when you change one thing, you have no choice but to change a whole bunch of other things if you're going to make the bait work properly. So as an example, let's take this shallow running crankbait. It's a jerkbait style lure that has 3 sets of lightweight trebles, and let's imagine that we want to turn this into a deep diving crankbait. We want something that's going to go right down, skim along the bottom, rather than something that's going to be working mid-water, maybe as a suspending, maybe as a shallow running lure. So the first thing we'd need to do is we'd need to change out that diving lip. And that's because the size and the shape of the diving lip plays a very large part in determining the maximum diving depth of a crankbait. And essentially, the larger the area of that diving lip, the deeper the potential diving depth of the lure. Now, there are a number of things that fight against the diving lip and can actually make the lure run a bit shallower. But as a general rule, the deeper you want it to go, the larger the diving lip is going to need to be. The problem with that is that although it makes the lure dive deeper, it makes the action very strong and the lure becomes unstable and actually roll over and blow out. So the next thing I would do is I would change the angle of the diving lip, as shown in this slide. So I'd be pushing the diving lip up closer to the horizontal. Now what that does is it takes a little bit of the water pressure off the lip. So you've still got the surface area, but as the lure is diving from the surface down to its maximum diving depth, the area of crankbait, or the area of lip that's actually catching the water, is reduced. Once it gets down to maximum depth, then you get the maximum area because of the angle of the line pulling back at the lure. Now what this will do is it will moderate the action a little bit by spilling some of that pressure. The diving depth is still increased and the lure's more stable, but it'd still be prone to blowing out and rolling over. And so we'd need to come up with some way of stabilizing it further. The next little trick that helps to stabilize crankbaits that have a very large diving lip is to move the tow point further forward. And to do that with this style of lure, you've actually got to move the tow point onto the diving lip. And if you've done a bit of fishing, you've probably seen this before. Now what that does is it reduces the area in front of the tow point. So it stabilizes the lure because it requires less side-to-side movement to spill pressure off the bib. But it still maintains a large surface area, so you still get the great diving depth that you're after with these deep diving crankbaits. The other advantage is that it takes some of the pressure off the rod tip, so you get less drag on the line, and these lures can be retrieved a little bit faster than a lure with a tow point that's further back. Now the final thing that I would do personally is I'd change the hook configuration, because the jerkbait that we started out with is designed for use in mid-water, suspending, shallow water, whereas a deep diving crankbait is often working down near deep heavy structure, so you may want to put some heavier hooks and rings on, and I'd change out those 3 light rings and replace them with 2 heavier hooks and rings, but that's personal choice. So having made all those changes, what we're now left with is a deep diving crankbait. But the problem is that the swimming action of the new bait is absolutely nothing like the original crankbait. So when people come to me with this question, my usual answer is you need to design your bait from the ground up. Don't try and modify an existing bait, but start out with a very, very clear plan in mind. Know exactly what you want your bait to do, and then design it with all the features you need to put into it to make it do those things that you want it to do. And to do that, you need to fully understand the relationship between the size and shape and the angle of your diving lip, tow point location, the shape of the crankbait body, how you weight it, because in a lot of cases you will need to weight your lures to make them do what it is that you want them to do, and the number and size and the location of the hooks that you put. Once you have that knowledge, you can design baits to do anything you want them to do. Of course, until then, if you want to just learn how to make baits, why not take advantage of the many templates that are included in the Crankbait Masterclass.